Hey, good day to you. This is Todd. I am a regular dude walking in the Word. Hey, as we're going through Leviticus, I realize it might seem kind of tedious and stuff with all these offerings that are given and sacrifices that are given. The first ones we've talked about were all voluntary. Now we're getting to ones that are mandatory. If you do this, then you are required to give a sacrifice. Okay. Now, naturally, I don't think the priests were going around going, hey, I saw you sin the other day, so you need to do the sacrifice. I don't think they had time for all that. But if you wanted a relationship with God, you needed to do these sacrifices, really to cover your sin, okay? And the terminology is atone, which means to cover your sin, okay? Just like the ark was had a covering on it. So it's not forgiving the sin, but it's covering that sin. All right. So today we're looking at the sin offering and how it's pointing to Jesus, and this is taken from Leviticus chapter 4. I want you to also understand this too. This particular offering that's giving is covering our sin nature. Okay, the one we're getting into tomorrow, the trespass offering, it covers the specific sins. Okay, we're all born with a sinful nature, and we just naturally choose because we're man and woman, and we sin. Okay, so that's covering what we talk about today covers the sin nature. Tomorrow we talk about the trespass offering, and that's covering, if I go and steal something, I need to, do the sacrifice for that. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So keep that in mind today. We're talking about our sinful nature and the sacrifice that is done for that. And this is taken from Leviticus chapter 4, so turn in your Bibles there with me. It says this: The Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, when anyone sins unintentionally and does what is forbidden in any of the law's commands, if the anointed priest sins, bring guilt on the people. He must bring to the Lord a young bull without defect as a sin offering for the sin he has committed. Okay, so the priest is to bring a bull. That's a pretty serious thing. And it was the same thing with the nation too. If a nation sinned, you're going to see they both had to bring a bull. So the ministry of the priest was a serious thing, and God took it serious with that. And also keep in mind here, it's sinning intentionally or unintentionally. Like, I didn't realize I did that. And so it's all covered here. And there's no excuse. You can't go, oh, yeah, I didn't know about it. Oh, no, this was a sacrifice because you didn't know about it. Okay? Verse 3, if the anointed priest sins, bring the guilt offering on the people. He must bring to the Lord a young bull without defect as a sin offering for the sin he has committed. He is to present the bull at the entrance to the tent of meeting before the Lord. He is to lay his hand on its head and slaughter it before the Lord. Then the anointed priest shall take some of the bull's blood and carry it to the tent of meeting. He is to dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle some of it 7 times before the Lord in front of the curtain of the sanctuary. The priest shall then put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of the fragrant incense that is before the Lord in the tent of meeting. The rest of the bull's blood he shall pour out at the base of the altar of the burnt offering at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He shall remove all the fat from the bowl of the sin offering, all the fat that is connected to the internal organs, both kidneys with the fat on them, near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. Just as the fat is removed from the ox and sacrificed as a fellowship offering, then the priest shall burn them on the altar of the burnt offering. But the hide of the bull and all its flesh, as well as the head and the legs, the internal organs, and the intestines, that is all the rest of the bull, he must take outside the camp to a place ceremonially clean, where the ashes are thrown, and burn it there in a wood fire on an ash heap. So different, okay? It's you got to be paying attention back then. I'm so glad I didn't live back then, because it'd be hard keep everything all together. But the people were living this each day, so they knew what was expected of them. Verse 13. If the whole Israelite community sins unintentionally and does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commands, even though the community is unaware of the matter, when they realize their guilt and the sin they committed becomes known, the assembly must bring a young bull as a sin offering and present it before the tent of meeting. Okay, so if the whole nation sins, and if the priest sins, it's the same thing. It's a bull. And it wasn't, oh no, if you can't afford that, you can do birds. Nope, it was a bull for each of those things. So the ministry of the priest was a serious thing. God took that serious. And had the same weight as if a whole nation sins. Okay, so just something to note there. Verse 15, the elders of the community are to lay their hands on the bull's head before the Lord, and the bull shall be slaughtered before the Lord. Then the anointed priest is to take some of the bull's blood into the tent of meeting. He shall dip his finger into the blood and sprinkle it before the Lord 7 times in front of the curtain. He is to put some of the blood on the horns of the altar that is before the Lord in the tent of meeting. The rest of the blood he shall pour out at the base of the altar of the burnt offering, at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and he shall remove all the fat from it and burn it on the altar, and do with this bull just as you did with the bull for the sin offering. In this way the priest will make atonement for the community, and they will be forgiven. Then he shall take the bull outside the camp and burn it as he burned the first bull. This is the sin offering for the community. Okay? When a leader sins unintentionally and does what is forbidden in any of all the commands of the Lord his God, when he realizes his guilt and the sin which he has committed becomes known, he must bring as his offering a male goat without defect. He is to lay his hand on the goat's head and slaughter it at the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered before the Lord. It is a sin offering. Then the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering and pour out the rest of the blood on the base of the altar. He shall burn all the fat on the altar as he burned the fat of the fellowship offering. In this way the priest will make atonement for the leader's sin, and he will be forgiven. Okay, so this is a leader. We talked about when a priest sins, and then when the whole Israelite community sins, they're to sacrifice a bull. When a leader sins, this is what we just read here, he's to sacrifice a goat. Okay, so a little less expensive, but still, it wasn't an option either of, oh, if you can't afford it, you can do birds. No, it was, you do a goat. Okay. Now, verse 27, if any member of the community sins unintentionally and does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commands, when they realize their guilt and the sin they committed becomes known, they must bring in as their offering for the sin they committed a female goat without defect. They are to lay their hands on the head of the sin offering and slaughter it at the place of the burnt offering. Then the priest is to take some of the blood with his fingers and put it on the horns of the altar and of the burnt offering, and pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. They shall remove all the fat, just as the fat is removed from the fellowship offering, and the priest shall burn it on the altar as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. In this way the priest will make atonement for them, and they will be forgiven. If someone brings a lamb as their sin offering, they are to bring a female without defect. They are to lay their hand on its head and slaughter it as a sin offering at the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered. Then the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering at the base of, and pour it at the base of the altar. They shall remove all the fat, just as the fat is removed from the lamb of the fellowship offering. And the priest shall burn it all on the altar on top of the food offering presented to the Lord. In this way, the priest will make atonement for them and for their sin they have committed. Okay? We're stopping there today. That's a lot of information. But it's dealing with the sin offering and the different, the 4 different groups. You had the priest and you had the nation. And again, this is mandatory. It's not a voluntary thing. If you sin, this is what was to happen. Whether you realized the sin whether you did it unintentionally or intentionally, it both required the sacrifice. You were to do a bull if you were a priest. You were to do a bull if you were the whole nation. Okay, so again, it points out that the ministry of the priest was held in high honor, and so it kind of is self-explanatory there. Okay, and then you had a goat if a leader sins, and then you had a sheep if any member of the community sins. Okay, and a lamb also. So it shows you all the sacrifices, and again, it's all pointing to Jesus and how Jesus was our sacrifice that took our place. So when Jesus died as a sacrifice, there's no need to keep on doing these sacrifices here. These sacrifices were only covering up the sin anyway. But Jesus not only covered up the sin, but he took the sin away. Okay, he took it on himself. So I no longer have the sin if I've accepted him. So hopefully that makes sense with everything. I'm going to end here today, and we're going to talk about the trespass offering tomorrow. So Lord's blessing. I will see you tomorrow.